I think that it's going to breathe new life into the city too, because I think that there was a very stagnant feel of the same kind of people for a little while, because those are the kinds of people that could afford to live in San Francisco.
Exactly.
You know? And honestly, the thing that I noticed the most that was lacking from the city when I got here was there's very few artists. You know, and maybe it's just because I came from Austin, where it was just teeming with artists everywhere you go. Like I felt like there was very few, you know, people who can afford to just be expressive, you know, artists and be able to afford 100%. To live in that city.
San Francisco in general.
Yeah, in San Francisco in general. As a matter of fact, when I the first day I got to the city, I asked my Uber driver, I was like, "So where's the best hip hop in the city?" He's like, "Oh, about 10 years ago."
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. He arrived in San Francisco from Austin, Texas in 2018 after attending that year's Emerald Cup. Once he experienced a bit of what the Bay Area had to offer, he knew this was the place to make his mark. As an entrepreneur, he's changing the way people view cannabis. His motto, Cannabis Avante-Garde, is something that is reflected in his life and passion for business. The core beliefs that drive him are excellence, enlightenment, and efficiency. He believes that Canna Theory's success is dependent on the products and services that they produce being easy to use, made with quality, and be able to provide utility that makes customers' lives easier. He cultivates his creative fruit and his belief in the transformative power of one of the world's most misunderstood plants. Canna Theory's mission is to make the most exceptional cannabis, cultivation, and industrial hemp products that simplify personal grows and minimize the impact on our environment. Please welcome to the podcast, Chris Guerra.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to have you, man.
I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we like to always start the podcast with kind of getting to know the person, like your background, how you grew up. Because I feel like when someone knows where you came from, they can connect with you more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you grew up in Texas.
Yes,
right?
I'm from San Antonio, Texas originally.
Okay.
It's my hometown. I was there till I was about 10. And then I moved to a little further south to the Rio Grande Valley. Okay. Which is the very, very tip of Texas.
That's right by the border.
Right by the border. Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing further or closer to the border than that.
I think Corpus Christi is the closest one there.
No, actually, that's 2 hours north of where I was.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So there's another 2 hours south. I was in a town called Harlingen, which is about 15 minutes from the Mexican border.
Wow.
Yeah. 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What was it like growing up 15 minutes from the Mexican border?
Well, it wasn't much of a change growing up in San Antonio, because San Antonio has such a large Hispanic population and culture that moving to the valley, it was just like a smaller version of that. Okay. I was already used to the very much the Hispanic, like just being totally like dripped in Hispanic culture there, fiesta and like it. I don't know if y'all have ever been to the Riverwalk in San Antonio, but it's insane. You'd love it.
I want to go. I want to go
too.
for sure. Yeah,
y'all should definitely check it out sometime. Yeah. You'd like it.
You said Riverwalk.
The Riverwalk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Texas accent is coming out. He said y'all.
Yeah. So it's a big Hispanic culture out there?
Well, in San Antonio specifically, yes. I think it's something like 65 or 70% of the population is Hispanic.
Wow.
Which is one of the larger Hispanic per capita populations in the U.S., I believe. But yeah, everything about San Antonio is very Mexican culture. There's a lot of culture, Mexican cultural museums, a lot of art that goes on there. There's a lot of artists that travel from Mexico to do stuff in Mexico in San Antonio. It's just a very Mexican friendly city.
Yes. So growing up in San Antonio, are you Mexican American yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. And then so basically you moved from like the city to kind of like the valley of Texas, yeah. Right?
Which that was the biggest shock, honestly. If anything, it was going from a city like San Antonio to a small town like the valley. That was the biggest shock. But it was interesting for sure, because I feel like it helped me get to know myself a lot more, because I wasn't in a lot of the stuff that a lot of people in bigger cities had to deal with on a regular basis. So growing up with a lot more time to think kind of helped me develop who I was a little bit.
Okay.
So what are the main difference? Like what you said, culture shock.
Well, growing up in the city, it's very hustle and bustle.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got your friends, you've got your people and honestly, what's funny about it is living in a larger city, your area of travel is a lot smaller. So like being from the valley, because it was such a small town, there's maybe 45,000 people in that town when I got there. It would take you about 10 to 20 minutes to get across town, that kind of thing. In San Antonio, when you're from a neighborhood, you stay in that neighborhood. You don't need to go anywhere else because everything you need is in that one neighborhood. So I had friends that would never leave certain parts of town, had never left certain parts of town until they graduated high school, kind of thing. So
I think we were talking about this earlier, but I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan, and I know they're big in San Antonio.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so I remember in 1989, I grew up in the Bay Area, so obviously nothing to do with Texas, except for my mom is from Texas, right? But I remember in 1989, everybody liked the Bulls or the Warriors, and I didn't want to be the one who was like the bandwagoner, you know, just like the team that everybody else loved. So David Robinson, that's when he started playing for the Spurs, like 89, 90, and he was a big 7-foot lefty. And back in those days, you know, we're kind of the same age. It was all about the big man in the NBA, right? And so I just fell in love with David Robinson and the Spurs, and then luckily we got Duncan a couple years later, and like the rest is history.
The rest is history, as they say. Yeah, it's funny because we actually waited 2 years after drafting Robinson to get him to play. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Because he had to fill out his obligation with
military.
the military.
Yeah.
So we were willing to wait. He was an amazing player. He's one of my favorite players all time, definitely.
What year was this?
Oh, this was in 89. We drafted him in 87.
Yeah, 87.
And then he didn't play until 89 because he had to do his 2 years. And then we got Duncan in 97. Yeah, and then we went to the championship for the first time in 99.
Yeah.
Which that's the one with the asterisks, as they say, but I don't
So this is before San Antonio versus Lakers then.
Oh yeah.
This is way before.
Well, this is before, but I lived in Southern California during when they were basically trading off championships.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the whole early 2000s into the mid 2000s, it was like Spurs, Lakers, Spurs, Lakers, Spurs,
Oh, it was Lakers.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I think it was Spurs, then it was Lakers, 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 then Spurs, and then Lakers, Spurs.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of split there, but unfortunately, San Antonio has never repeated. Of all the 5 championships that they had in that concentrated time, there was never a repeat.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to repeat. You got to be. I mean, the one thing I do appreciate about the Spurs, though, they were the first to go international when they found Parker and Ginobili. They kind of started that trend of like let's find players from outside of the United States.
Yeah, there were a few before them, but they were definitely the ones that did it with some success.
Right.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, you had Tony Kukoc with the Bulls. And you had a couple other guys that were around the same time, but there was never a team I felt that was that
built
utilized
100%
utilized as much of the talent that you could find around the world as the Spurs did. Yeah,
because Duncan's from the Virgin Islands. Parker was from France. Ginobili's from Argentina.
Correct.
And I mean, they just I just thought it was smart. They drafted Parker like in
Boris
the second
Diaw
round.
was in France as
Diaw,
well. Yeah. There was a bunch of players that they were very comfortable, and that was one of the allures for these international players. They liked playing in San Antonio because it had such a good reputation of being internationally friendly. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, this is not about the Spurs. It's about you, right?
We can
Yeah,
get lost
guys.
in
I'm
it.
like, this is way before my time.
Joe's like, what are you guys talking about, right? So anyways, did you have any siblings growing up, a big family?
Yeah, actually, I've got 2 brothers. I've got a younger brother, Brian, and a younger brother, Charles. My brother, Charles, is actually... he's taller than me. He's 6 foot. Yeah, he's 6'11" and a half. He's a big kid.
6'11".
He's a big kid.
The Spurs need him.
Right?
Yeah.
And then my other brother Brian, he's the middle child. He's a gunsmith actually in Texas. Funny enough,
He's probably very busy in Texas.
Oh yeah, they love their guns there. Definitely, he's always busy. It said it slowed down a little bit since the election was over, but it always picks up, he says, when a Democrat's in office. Business does, at least.
Everyone's
What
like,
is a gunsmith, by the way?
He makes guns from scratch. He actually builds guns. He takes them from the initial piece that gets made at the manufacturer, which is going to be the mechanism, the firing mechanism, everything. And he basically creates everything around that. So he does custom work and stuff like that.
Do you remember that show, Pimp My Ride?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like Pimp My Ride for guns.
Exactly.
What?
So you bring in your gun and he like pimps it out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Cool.
basically.
He's got a company. It's called Armas de Guerra, and it's basically just that they just do custom work like that. But they'll do powder coating, any kind of like. So it's a lot of cool stuff. In Texas, they're very fancy guns.
Yeah, don't mess with Texas, man.
No.
They could shoot you on their property, and here, if we shoot somebody on our property, like we might go to jail. Which is,
that's not. They don't have stand your ground here.
no, they don't. It's
I just
crazy.
don't mess with guns at all. So
Yeah, me neither. I like swords.
Right.
Yeah, like the big
Like a
sword we got
ninja.
right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were the oldest.
I am the oldest. Yes.
What's that like being the oldest of 3 boys?
That was fun because I got to carry the most furniture. Mostly is what it meant.
So they made you carry everything all the time.
Oh yeah, my mother is proud to say that she had 3 boys just to move furniture. That was her. That was her whole thing.
Yeah,
She has a sense of humor.
Right.
she's old school. That's what they used to have kids for, right? To help out around the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get 3 boys in the house. Was there lots of fights? Lots of
No, we were actually pretty docile. I guess they just understood that I was in charge.
Okay.
We just went.
Yeah, there you go.
You were in charge.
Right.
Okay.
Always the
No,
boss, right?
They never. There was never any kind of. We were actually pretty good kids for the most part. We didn't fight a lot. We got into other kinds of mischief, but nothing physical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I asked is because I only have a younger sister, but my brother-in-law comes from a family of 10.
Oh wow.
Where there's I think 5 boys and 3 girls, and then obviously the parents, right? And there was 4 boys that grew up together, and they just tell me that it was just nonstop fights, like literally like crazy stuff where they almost like literally killed each other, but like on accident. You know what I mean? Like they thought it would be funny, and then it's like, oh shoot, I almost killed my brother. That wasn't very funny. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. But I guess that's pretty cool right there. So
It sounds really peaceful. That sounds almost almost unusual.
Yeah,
that
you would
guys-
think for 3 boys, but
Yeah.
no, we were occupied by cartoons and stuff like that. We were really easy to keep under control as long as we had a couple of things to keep us not
Busy?
Yeah, busy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
that's good.
Famously, like it's funny. One of my favorite stories about my childhood was a punishment because my mother, she one time what she would do is when we would be a little too rowdy, she would sit us down and she had it was like a whole bowl of beans and she would give us a pair of chopsticks and an empty bowl. And she's like, all right, you're going to pick these beans up and you're going to move from one to the other.
Wow.
And we would, which by the way, I can juggle with chopsticks, just so you know. Yeah, that's my
Dang.
thing.
That sounds really
Right.
cool. Where did she learn that from? That's-
I'm sure she read it somewhere, like
Yeah.
how to drive your kids crazier than they're driving you, or whatever the book
Yeah.
she read at that point.
She's so smart.
But yeah, she's a very smart woman,
Yeah.
and she definitely But I love that because now she taught me something while teaching me something.
Yeah, it was like discipline.
That was like some Mr. Miyagi stuff.
For
Yeah,
real. No,
exactly.
for real.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't try to play any mind games with her. She's the
Yeah.
master for sure.
Your mom seems like a very intelligent
She is.
woman.
She is.
Yeah.
She's definitely been a big inspiration in my life for sure.
So was it just your mom raising you guys, or?
Oh no, not at all. My father and my mother have been together. They were high school sweethearts. They were like the
Wow.
quintessential
That's very
American
rare.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very. It's rare, but like it's like what everybody strives for. I
That's
feel like
special.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
They met in high school. They've been together ever since. My father was an executive at Coca-Cola for a while. My mother's been she's just done multiple things. She was a teacher for a little while. She's just very multifaceted.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense now why the boys were good because it seems like you guys had a very good home.
Yeah,
growing
we
up.
did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're in the valley, basically almost the border of Texas. What brought you to Austin, or when did you move to Austin?
Well, I'd been back and forth because one thing about growing up in South Texas is you can't wait to get out of South Texas. So it's a lovely place to visit. That's all I can say.
There you go. Right?
Visit.
Yeah,
What
my-
time of the year?
Well, that's the one thing about it is the weather's always the same. So there's no weather change in South Texas like that. It's
Okay.
always you can always go and have a good time at the beach. They do have a nice beach down there, South Padre Island. It's a cool
Yeah,
thing.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
But yeah, so I always went back and forth. I lived back in San Antonio. I moved back to San Antonio for a little while. After that, I moved to Austin for a bit. Then I moved back down to the valley. I'd say I moved to Austin the last time in 2013.
Okay.
And I was there till about, no, actually it was more than that. It was sooner than that. So that's how old I am. I'm forgetting already. No, it was 2008. And then I lived there until about 16. We moved to Hawaii for a little while.
Okay, that's nice. My parents are retired in Hawaii.
Oh, nice. What island?
Oahu.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, we were on Oahu as well. We were in Waikiki.
Okay, yeah, that's where they're at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just. It's literally where older people go to retire. It's like it's so chill though. It's like spring break for older people. It's awesome. Everybody.
Is that true, parents? Yeah.
And you go to all the bars there. It's mostly people in their 50s have having a great time. You know, it's
That's
just, yeah, it's a
awesome.
lot of fun.
Yeah, because, you know, there's like Maui and all that, but my parents, they like the action. Like, they like to hang out. They like to go do stuff, so they chose Waikiki.
They knew exactly what they were doing then,
Yeah.
because the other islands, it doesn't have the same feel. It's much more laid back. We visited Kauai, and even the north side of Oahu is got a different feel than Waikiki. Waikiki is very tourist friendly. They're very nice. Yeah, I could see why they like that area.
It's funny too, because Hawaii's like very chill.
Very,
like, there's nobody in a hurry like in Hawaii. You know what I mean?
It's called aloha time.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Aloha
is,
time.
it's fun and annoying at the same time,
Yeah.
which if you could believe.
Well, if you come from like California or Texas, right, it's probably an adjustment.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And being from, it's funny because it reminded me a lot of Texas, because there's very few states I feel like that have that kind of like state pride.
Yeah.
Texas is definitely one of them.
100%.
Yeah, and Hawaii was definitely the other.
Yeah.
A lot of it being the fact that they were occupied, so I can understand, you know, why there's a lot of resentment. But there's a large amount of the population that does not like being occupied. So it's kind of but that translates a lot to their pride in their state or their country, which what they call it. But but
Country,
yeah, it's interesting, and like that's the thing about traveling. I feel like when Heidi and I ever tried to go, and like, whenever we lived somewhere else, we really tried not to like shake the boat. We really tried to be as respectful of the people and the place that we were as possible.
Which is good, because then they're gonna welcome you. The
Exactly.
community will welcome you.
Exactly.
And so you mentioned Heidi. Is that your significant other?
Yes, my fiance. Heidi.
So how did you and your fiance meet?
Oh, we met in South Texas originally. Yeah, she's one of the people who I met when I moved. Well, actually, when I got back to the Valley, one of the times from being in Austin.
So you guys met in South Texas.
Yeah, we met in South Texas, in Harlingen. She was a friend of a friend.
Okay.
That's
actually the best way to meet somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
It's organic.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think I was selling her boyfriend weed, and they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, which I had never heard of, and I was totally interested in, mostly because they had convinced this hot chick to play with them, and I was like, how did they do this? But,
how'd you do that?
but it was a pretty interesting time. But yeah, her boyfriend and I were good friends for a minute, and it's a small town. That's all I can say.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in small towns, like everybody kind of knows everybody.
That's how it is.
You know, that's cool. So then you guys met and hit it off right away. Or?
Yeah. We met. We were friends for a few years before then. There was a couple of different things that had happened. So I originally had gotten arrested in Missouri a while back. This was in 2013. No, 2000. I don't remember the exact year, but basically it was a while ago, and I got a felony possession for marijuana, because I was at that time, one of the things I did was I was involved with some people who were moving stuff at the north. But anyway.
So you're a mule.
This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Something like that, exactly. So I got in trouble for that.
You're Clint Eastwood.
Exactly. So I got in trouble for that, and I went back home, and that's kind of like when I started hanging out with Heidi, was after that. So I kind of just started rebuilding myself at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it was it's hard to find a job, you know, after you have a record, something like that. So a lot of it, everything I've done has just been organic from the ground up. Like I've had to, you know, I've taught myself a lot of things. I've taken a lot of certifications. I've taken a lot of courses just to get myself to where I needed to be.
Yeah.
You know, to where I am now. So.
Well, they say formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune.
Absolutely.
You got to be street smart too.
I'm
not
an
just book smart.
entrepreneur myself, and so I'm all about entrepreneurship, and nothing wrong with education, by the way. But I'm more about the entrepreneur route, self-education, and just making things happen. And that's really like what this podcast is about. We want to bring people in that are actually pursuing their passion, their purpose, things that they really love, you know, because I want to inspire other people that if they can do it, then you can do it too. Does that make sense? So about Texas, a funny thing. So my mom's from Texas. I still have family in Fort Worth, but it I don't know if you knew this, Joe, but y'all is actually a word in Texas.
Y'all.
Y'all. They teach it in
YALL.
school. Yeah.
Really?
It's a word.
Why
Okay,
are
I didn't
y'all
know
saying
that.
that like y'all didn't know that?
Yeah. Like y'all come back now. You hear it, right? So y'all is an actual
Y'all
word.
watch this, okay?
Yeah. Y'all watch this out in Texas, right? But yeah, y'all's a word in Texas, right? They teach it.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. I remember.
It's more than a word. It's a state of being. Like, it's
State
just-
of being, y'all.
You should just
Okay.
make a T-shirt for your company and just have it put y'all. Y'all try my products yet? Yeah.
Speaking of Texas, we're actually part of our company is in Texas.
Okay.
So like right now up here, we're doing a lot of the executive end of it, but a lot of the research end of it is going on in Texas.
Okay.
My CTO is actually a graduate of Texas A&M University.
Okay.
He's a civil engineer, and what he's working on right now is what we were telling you, that proprietary hempcrete mix that we're going to put on the market hopefully.
Hempcrete, that's awesome. That sounds pretty cool. I mean, as you know, now you're in the Bay Area. This is the land of innovation and tech and all that kind of stuff. So if you can apply innovation and technology to the cannabis industry, I think you have something pretty special there.
That's the goal, definitely.
Yeah. So real quick, going back, so you and your fiance, you guys moved to Hawaii together. What was it about Hawaii? You guys just wanted to check it out, or?
At that point in our lives, we were just like, we just wanted to do something different. You know, we were ready for a change. We'd been in Austin for a few years. We really loved it. We did the music festival scene for years. We had just felt like there was more out there to see.
Right.
And being that we had the ability to be a little bit more, flexible with our schedules, we thought, why not? So I encouraged her to start applying for positions out there, and she got one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Austin too. I heard Austin is like the Bay Area of Texas. Is that true?
Yeah, except they've got breakfast tacos and Mexican martinis, which are two things I don't know why they can't figure out in the Bay Area.
So what is a breakfast taco?
It's just like a breakfast burrito, except it's not wrapped all the way, and it is. I don't know why, but for some reason the tortillas maybe are just different in Texas.
So it's like eggs, potatoes.
Yeah, you got your eggs, potatoes, chorizo, bacon.
Okay.
You could really do it up. However, one of my favorites is eggs, potato, bacon, cheese, and beans, like refried beans.
Yeah.
And then in South Texas and in Texas in general, they just know how to do breakfast tacos.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing.
They also have its own style of cuisine. They call it Tex-Mex.
Oh yeah,
right?
Tex-Mex, which I was just I assumed was Mexican food. Like when I got out here, I was like, "What the is going on?"
Yeah.
Somebody asked to wet my burrito, and I was like, "You trying to get punched in the face? What's going on here?"
You're like,
I'm like,
what you talking
first
about?
off, all
man?
y'all
Yeah.
sell is burritos, and then you're trying to wet it on top of that. No, I'm good, thank you.
You
That's
can
hilarious.
curse on the podcast. By
Okay.
the way.
Yeah.
It's
I
all
wasn't
good.
sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
wet my burrito. What you talking about? What kind of wetting are we talking about here? That's funny. Okay, so breakfast tacos is basically just a taco but with breakfast,
Exactly.
and it's a little Tex-Mex flavor in it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know what it is, but it's either the tortillas or something. But there's something about it that it's just it's hard to duplicate for some reason. I don't know what it is. But the other thing that really I miss a lot about Austin is the Mexican martinis. If y'all are y'all
What's in
margarita fans at all? Do y'all
I like
tequila?
margaritas.
Okay.
They're cool.
It's essentially a skinny margarita, but with a little bit of olive juice, and then you shake it and throw it into like a martini
Olive
glass.
juice.
Oh yeah,
I
so
like
it gives
olives
a
a lot.
So it gives it a little bit of that sweet and salty.
The soury olive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Is it the green
spicy?
olive or the black
The
olive?
green. Yeah,
Okay, got it.
absolutely.
Is it spicy at all, or
You
or
can make it spicy.
Yeah.
I don't
Maybe
usually
I'm thinking
spice
about
them.
empanada, not empanada. What's that called? Enchilada? No.
Enchiladas.
Enchiladas.
Oh, menchilada? Wait, like
Wait.
the actual dish?
The-
Oh, like
no, the
food?
drink.
Oh, that's a menchilada.
Menchilada.
Menchilada,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Michelada.
Michelada.
Michelada. Oh my God. You guys correct me.
He's
You're
like-
the
I'm like
Hispanic ones.
enchilada, menchilada, michelada.
My bad, guys. My bad. I had it before many times. It's really
Yeah,
good.
it's basically when they put all the hot sauce and
Yeah.
the lemon and salt and all that all over the.
It's a Bloody Mary minus the vodka, add a Tecate.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we will definitely, because part of this channel, we want to do travel vlogs and stuff. Definitely want to go to Austin. Definitely want to try Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. If y'all
And-
definitely go,
For
let me
sure.
know. I'll give y'all some spots to hit up. for
Heck
sure.
yeah! I want to try that. What is it? Mexican margarita.
Mexican martini.
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 Mexican martini.
Mexican
okay, got
martini.
it right. Leave it in the comments if you guys have ever had a Mexican martini or if you know what he's talking about.
If you've ever been to Trudy's, you know what I'm
If
talking
you know
about.
what
guys.
Menchilada is, send us comments too.
Yeah. All right. So you guys go from Austin to Hawaii, and then you guys come to the Bay.
Actually, we went back to Austin for a year, but that was just to kind of reset.
Okay.
And then from there, we actually met up. I got a hold of a friend of mine who I hadn't been in touch with for a minute. Her name's Christina. She's actually she runs the Emerald magazine.
Okay.
It's a magazine here in Southern California.
Emerald is a magazine. Okay.
Emerald for the cannabis?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're in the
gotcha.
cannabis industry, and she convinced us to move out here. Actually, she convinced us to go to the Emerald Cup, kind of check it out. And once we saw all that, we fell in love with the place. And she had mentioned she had a spot. She wanted us to come down and stay with her, so we moved into the Castro together. And then she got a really good opportunity to kind of launch her media group big time. So she's actually in New York currently.
Okay.
Yeah, so she went that way, and we decided to stay in the Bay because we loved it so much.
That's ironic. She
Nice.
brought you guys here, and then she takes off to New
Yeah,
York.
yeah. Thank you, Christina. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, let me ask you this. How do you like the weather in the Bay Area?
I love the weather in the Bay.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is amazing weather. Like I don't mind that the summers are cold and the winters are warm. That's perfect actually. I like it backwards. It's better than in Texas where it's always 100, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's either 100 or it's snowing. You're like,
'Cause
why?
Sometimes
Why?
I forget and I take things for granted when I travel different
Mm-hmm.
places. I ask other people, "Oh, why'd you guys move out here?" The first thing they say is the weather, besides the opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I've lived in Florida. I've been to Texas, Colorado. I've been to Georgia, and I mean, I just can't beat the weather in California.
You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the Bay Area, maybe Southern California. Actually, Southern California is always like nice and sunny. You know?
Yeah.
But the Bay Area, you get all the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't snow here, but I mean, you can drive 4 hours to Tahoe and you're in beautiful snow.
Nice and sunny can be annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I prefer the change. I like that.
Yeah.
I like it here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're a
Keeps you
person who
interested.
likes the seasons.
Absolutely.
Okay.
After seeing none for many years, yes, definitely.
It's funny though. We always want what we don't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah. So you guys are in San Francisco.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, actually, probably one of the best cities to move to if you're coming to the Bay Area. I mean, it's kind of where it's at, but there's been a lot of changes because of this whole pandemic.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
nuts. Absolutely. We were really lucky in the fact that we got to see San Francisco for a full year before
Right.
the where we're at now, and then, but and then we had this whole year of with the pandemic. So it's been an interesting thing to see in both directions.
Yeah.
But the good news is that rent's going down, which
Yeah.
is helpful.
100%,
for a lot of
yeah.
people, because I don't know anybody except the people who own the property probably that feel that that's not
Yeah.
a good thing.
Right.
But I think that it's going to breathe new life into the city too, because I think that there was a very stagnant feel of the same kind of people for a little while, because those are the kinds of people that could afford
That's
to
a
live
good
in San
point.
Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah.
And honestly, the thing that I noticed the most that was lacking from the city when I got here was there's very few artists. And maybe it's just because I came from Austin, where it was just teeming with artists everywhere you go. Like I felt like there was very few people who can afford to just be expressive artists and be able to afford to live in that city.
100%.
Dama, San Francisco in general.
Yeah, in San Francisco in
Gotcha.
general. As a matter of fact, when I the first day I got to the city, I asked my Uber driver, I was like, "So where's the best hip hop in the city?" He's like, "Oh, about 10 years ago."
That's funny.
And I tell
Yeah.
that joke all the time because it's such a good one, because that
Yeah.
guy is amazing. But yeah, they're right. And most people now who are more serious about the comment when I ask, or the question when I ask, is they tell me Oakland. They go to Oakland. They're
Yeah,
like, that's where
I
all
was
the
gonna
good-
say
that's
East
where the-
Bay.
yeah,
There's a lot
that's
of
where it's
artists
at.
out there.
And I mean, I should have known that, because when I came here to visit, we went to a few shows and they were in the East Bay. They were all good, so I should have known that.
Yeah.
If we had to cross a bridge to go to a show, then we'll probably have to cross a bridge
Yeah.
to do anything.
How long
good.
you been in the city?
We've been here for about 2.5 years now.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but we love it.
It's funny because it is true. Most of the creative people we've had on the podcast are from Oakland, right?
Or they
What do you
moved to
know?
Oakland.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're actually living in Oakland.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
they're-
no, it
some
makes
of them
sense.
from Oakland and some of them moved to Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the hub.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I grew up in the Bay Area, but I grew up here in the South Bay. So we're in Campbell, San Jose, right?
Mhm.
But the Oakland that I remember in the 90s is not the Oakland that it is today. It's completely different. So Oakland in the 90s was like too short, like not safe, you know what I mean? And by the way, a lot of people don't realize, but Oakland was a lot of Hispanic people in Oakland. It was almost like 50-50 Hispanic, African-American, But Oakland now is like artists and creatives and super gentrified and, hipsters and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's
you
a
know?
lot of healers too.
Yeah.
Spiritual workers.
Yeah.
Energy
Yeah,
workers.
but you mentioned something which is super important. San Francisco is now becoming affordable.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a good friend of mine. She moved from San Jose to San Francisco because she's basically paying the same rent she was paying here, but now she can live in the city, and she lives right by the water. Like you can see the water.
No,
you know what I mean?
it's a great thing. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's going to be a resurgence. I'm hoping of talent and just the city needs.
That's a good point, you know, because it was probably becoming super tech, super like that industry,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
money tech and
Absolutely.
everyone else. I mean, that's happened in
Well,
my city, San Jose, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think San Jose is probably the one of the more expensive cities when it comes to rent, isn't it?
yeah, San Jose is actually, I think, more expensive than San Francisco
Oh,
now.
wow.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
I believe it because they pay you so much
Yeah.
out here. The tech industry, it makes sense.
you know, eBay
the
is like
convenience.
a couple blocks down the street.
It's funny that you mentioned eBay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I actually worked for eBay for a few years
Really?
in Austin, and as I was driving down the road, I'm like, Hamilton Road. This sounds familiar, and I look over and I see eBay's building, and I'm like, oh, there's the that's their main office. So I
Yeah.
just thought that was interesting.
If
4
I-
years. 4 years for 4 years.
Yeah, well, I worked for 2.5 years for eBay in Austin.
Okay.
Yeah, I was part of their
funny, I didn't know
customer
eBay.
service department.
Then
Yeah.
you finally see the building. Wow.
Yeah,
And by the way,
That's so
eBay
fun.
owns the whole city block now.
really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
So I grew up here, and eBay. I remember eBay was just a little tiny
Mm-hmm.
company. Now they own the entire city block.
Wow.
They call it eBay Park, and then they own all the condominiums behind it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just same thing that was starting to happen in San Francisco, right?
Mhm.
Like you know, one of our guests that we had recently, he grew up in San Francisco, and he's talking about
Tony.
Yeah, Tony. Shout out to Tony, right?
Tone.
He's talking about this house belongs to this company, this block belongs to this company. Like
Yeah.
it's not even my neighborhood anymore. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Which is crazy. But I want to talk about Austin because you were there, and I hear a lot about Austin here because in the Bay Area, right?
Mhm.
A lot of the people in the Bay, they want to go to Austin because they say Austin's like the Bay Area of Texas.
Mhm.
They say the weather's a little bit better. It's more green. Is that true?
Austin's a great place. It's it's funny because there's a lot of young people there who are entrepreneurs, the self-starters. It's funny because we used to joke about it. We used to say that Austin is where young people go to retire because everywhere you go, there's like a bunch of people sitting in the Starbucks on their laptops and stuff like that. But
Gotcha.
it's a really good place, especially if you're starting out as an artist or just as an entrepreneur in general. It is. I think that the weather is bad.
Okay.
What I mean by that is it's hot the majority of the time. They do have very good air conditioning units in Texas, which is something they don't have in San Francisco. I've
Yeah.
noticed. But you need it all the time because it's always that hot. I'm personally a little bit more liberal than the majority of the people in Texas. So being in Austin, I kind of felt confined because you have to stay in Austin to feel that same kind of camaraderie, to feel that same kind of like that the people that you're around aren't completely different from the way that you view the majority of things.
So Austin is still very super conservative.
In Austin, the city itself is not, but again, being confined to the city limits, because once you're outside of the city,
yeah,
it's a
okay.
completely different story.
So you had to stay in the city
Yeah.
to feel like you're part of that community.
Exactly.
Because outside is still completely
Yes,
Texas,
yeah,
basically, yeah.
The rest of it is
Yeah.
Texas. So Austin is a blue dot in a sea of red, as they say. But I mean, and it's funny because a lot of the major cities in Texas are that way.
Yeah.
Maybe except for Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, El Paso, Corpus Christi, all of those cities, they're always like usually stronghold
Yeah.
Democrats, very progressive cities.
I like how you said that, blue dot in a sea of red. And I think, I don't know if this is true or not, but I mean, obviously the last election that we just had showed a lot. Arizona went blue, Texas almost went blue, which is like unheard of. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's because of all the Californians. They're saying all the Californians are leaving, and now they're affecting all the other states because they're obviously California is Democratic.
I always thought it was funny that the comparison made with California, because if you think about it, California and Texas have almost the exact same demographics.
Yeah.
The only difference is that the Hispanics, I feel, in Texas aren't organized to vote because of a fear of not necessarily the police, but just like there's always been a sense of like just I don't even know the way to say it. It's just there's always been a fear among the community.
The blue dot within the sea of red.
Exactly.
basically.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
the best way to explain it, like you're a blue dot, but you're in the ocean of
Yeah.
red.
That's exactly what it is.
That's a good point, because you are Hispanic, grew up in San Antonio. You know what I mean? But if the Hispanic, I mean, like they call our community the sleeping giant, right? Like if we just organized, if we just were, I mean, because we're so divided even amongst ourselves, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like a Mexican from Mexico, from Mexican from here, a Mexican from California, a Mexican from Texas.
Absolutely.
Like it's just crazy, right? But like you said, if we just united, even just with our power to vote, like we're very influential. Like they say the big reason why Arizona went blue was because the Hispanic community in Arizona rallied to make the changes, right? And also because Trump bashed one of the most popular Arizonians
Senators
ever,
of all
John
time,
McCain, right? So that was not very smart, but yeah, that's very interesting you say that, you know what I mean? Because I mean, you are Hispanic, you love your culture, but then you realize you're just in a sea of red, which is crazy. But I don't know, who knows? Maybe the outward migration of Californians I think it's going to start to change a lot of the states.
I think that honestly, it's going to be more of the change of heart of the people in the state already. I mean, there's a lot of influx. You're absolutely correct, but it would take like generations and generations of influx to be able to create that kind of change. I think that honestly, Trump did more disservice for the Republican Party in Texas than probably any other state in the union.
Which is pretty crazy to say.
And I say that because of like he didn't just show a lot of the people who would have traditionally voted for him that they were wrong in doing so. He showed a lot of the people who didn't vote for him that they needed to do something and organize. So
well, at the end, he kind of lost it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
People like Beto O'Rourke have made a big difference, I think, in Texas. You know, I mean, he didn't even get elected, and he's still out there trying to make sure that people in the community are taken care of. So,
who's Beto O'Rourke?
He actually ran for president this last time.
Oh, okay.
But he ran for senator against Ted Cruz and lost literally by just a couple of 100,000 votes, which it was insane. So, if you get a chance, look him up. I think it's somebody that you'll
V-E-T-O?
like Beto, like
B-E-T-O. It's Alberto,
Yeah.
but they call him short Beto, right?
Yeah.
I have a cousin named Beto. That's why. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Ted Cruz ain't doing himself any favors.
No, definitely not.
I mean, these Republicans are just shooting themselves in the foot. You know what I mean?
And the sad thing is the Texans keep forgiving him.
Yeah. I mean, Americans in general just have short-term memories.
Attention spans, absolutely.
We're going to have 4 years of, Democrats. And if the country gets bored or they get, irritated with one thing, they're going to switch or whatever.
Yep.
But anyways, this is not political either. It's about you, right? Yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to ask you about Austin because I've heard so much about it. I have a lot of friends who have moved to Austin and I was just curious, right? So now you're in San Francisco, and now it's getting more affordable. Tell us a little bit about the San Francisco before the pandemic and then San Francisco after the pandemic.
Well, the perfect way I could describe San Francisco before the pandemic as opposed to after the pandemic would be just my living situation. Okay, so for example, before the pandemic, we lived in the Castro. We had about an 800 or 900 square foot house, and we paid about $5,000 a month. Okay.
Yeah, and that was a good deal, right?
And we had to beat people off of the stick to get that happen.
God.
So now, currently, I live just a mile and a half from the Castro, off of Ocean. We live in a penthouse.
Wow.
We pay $4,500 a month.
That's awesome.
And we have 1,500 square feet inside and 1,000 square foot patio outside.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we got really lucky, and the pandemic helped us out a bunch. Luckily, we were in a situation because I was still working because I was considered essential, where we didn't have a lot of the hardships that a lot of the people who were living every day in San Francisco had to endure. So we got really lucky in that aspect.
That's awesome. You're blessed for some reason.
Yeah,
they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
that's right.
So you were prepared, and there goes the opportunity, right? So you were saying it's going to be a good thing, probably. I mean, every time something bad happens, there's always something good that you can get out of it if you look for it. You know what I mean?
Silver lining.
I agree.
Yeah, silver lining. So, like I said, a lot of people are now able to afford to live in San Francisco. They can afford something that's not like you said 900 square feet which is crazy. $5,000 a month for less than 1,000 square feet.
Yeah. We had like 5 rooms, but they were all like this big.
Yeah, like closets, right?
I think did you ever?
I've been to the Castro house.
Yeah, you went to the Castro house. It was tiny. We were just like everybody was moving left to right around. Everybody was
5 rooms.
Yeah, we had like 12 people in there.
Oh my
like for a
God.
party once.
Yeah.
Which was like before pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, I think people are kind of used to that in San Francisco, anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so now you guys are in San Francisco, and so how did your company come about?
That's actually a good question. So one of the I originally started the company with a friend of mine who was a software engineer from Facebook.
Okay.
We originally tried to focus on just kind of the smart pot, and he was going to work on the kind of the software end of it. What we ended up doing was he ended up focusing more on like an AI end of it. So we're still doing some collaborative work, but he actually moved to Mexico City because there's apparently like a wealth of people down there who are good at, or who are basically software engineers that are moving down there because it's convenient, it's less expensive. They have just as good internet apparently. So he started his another company down there, and he's been doing that. Since then, I've been kind of refocusing the company on what I can do to get our first product to market.
Okay.
And what we decided on was something that, would be helpful as far as getting the product to market, but is also like helpful to the environment. And this was the hempcrete.
Okay.
The reason why we stuck with the product hempcrete, or where we like the product hempcrete, a hempcrete product, is because it's actually great for pulling carbon out of the air.
Okay.
So any structure, any item, anything you build with hempcrete is like a little piece of lungs, essentially.
So it works like a tree, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Which is great. And on top of that, there's lots of different benefits to hempcrete as opposed to concrete. The lightness of it, the fire resistance, that kind of stuff. But that's just kind of like the direction we went, because we felt that it would be like a useful kind of thing to have.
That's amazing.
So
yeah, because like I always say, like one of my dreams or one of my goals or whatever, I hope I can influence. So cemeteries are kind of like useless, right? Like you bury somebody in a cemetery, and it's a box or whatever. The body, because I believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Once we pass away, our spirit's gone, but it's like the suit, it's like you're burying your suit. You know what I mean?
Doesn't seem to make sense.
It's like whatever, right? But what if we used our suit to feed a tree? What if every time somebody passed away, instead of putting a tombstone, you planted a tree?
I've heard that. That's actually a really good idea.
You know what I mean? And then obviously, this earth is made to kind of self-sustain. So our bodies are basically literally made to feed the earth. Like it's a cycle, right?
No, I agree. Yeah.
So your idea with the hempcrete is kind of like you're creating something that kind of works exactly like a tree, which is awesome, right? Because this, Lord knows, this earth, climate change and all that kind of stuff. We need many tools that will help,
right?
The climate. You know what I mean? So I think that's amazing.
I feel like any product I make that can either limit the amount of energy used or can somehow pull carbon out of the air are definite benefits to everybody. So
you're like the Tesla of hemp.
I was about to say, that's why you got Tesla, huh?
All right, hey, so we're on the same room.
What was your main inspiration to starting this business?
Well, honestly,
when did it come to you? As well.
It was just a friend of mine. We were sitting around smoking a joint, and we were like, we can make products that will help people grow this quality. There's no reason why. It was mostly us, bitching about how much it cost, and we're like, why are we paying so much for this stuff? But we wanted that quality, and that's what it came down to. It's like, we can get other stuff for less money, but it's not going to be the same quality that we were used to, same quality that we were, that we were happy with. So, so our whole thinking was, if we can make products that people can grow with, that will help them grow the same quality that they're able to pull from the dispensaries, then why not? Yeah. I mean, we truly believe that this industry is headed for a DIY renaissance, like anything else in this world. If you charge too much for something, people are going to do it themselves.
That's true.
I like what you said when you say why not, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what Elon Musk said when he flew to is it the moon? It was
Mars.
his car.
Oh yeah.
Something.
When they shot the Tesla, the Roadster into the
Roadster.
space.
Yeah, that one.
Space.
They basically say why
like,
not?
Like, Jesus, Elon, really, a car in the space. I mean, it was awesome. That was a good job.
that was cool.
That
when I
guy's
first heard
definitely a genius. He's definitely a visionary.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's funny because not funny, but it's kind of cool because you have a lot of experience in the cannabis world, right? Like you've How long have you been involved with cannabis?
All in all, probably about 7-8 years. I got involved doing photography for the industry, and then I did work. I worked at a few different clubs. Elevated SF. I don't know if y'all familiar with that one. It's
Sounds familiar.
Bayshore. Yeah, it's on Bayshore.
It's a nightclub, right?
It's my hood club. I love that club. That place is dope. But they taught me the ropes of the clubs here, so that's what's up. And then I worked for 831 Deliveries in Oakland. I got done with that real quick though. They were wanting me to drop off stuff in East Oakland, and I was like, y'all are crazy.
Yeah, you're like
no gun. I'm not going down there.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'll stay in the
they
gentrified
will
part.
rob you for an eighth. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's the Oakland I remember.
Yes, I say.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. That was the end of part 1. Part 2 comes out next Monday, 9 a.m. Please stay tuned.
Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when the next one comes out.